Hello, my name is Reverend Kristin Philipson, and I'm the minister at Rosedale United Church. I give you greetings from the entire congregation here, and I hope that your summer is going really well. I was asked to speak today on the theme, When Our Plans for Our Children Unravel. For those of us who are parents, the past few months of living through a global pandemic have meant watching our plans for our children unravel and then watching them unravel again. Can you even remember way back to March? Some of you might have had plans for March break unravel because of the sudden closure of borders. Schools closed till after Easter, then the beginning of May, and then they closed until September, and we still don't really know what school will be like when the kids go back. Those of you who are grandparents may have planned to visit, pitch in, babysit, help. All of it was undone. Some of you have adult children, and you've worried about their options. The job market is receding, unemployment is growing, plans have unraveled. We've had to get up earlier and stay up later to fit in work without adequate childcare. We've sat with our kids trying to help them to figure out math and culminating projects. We've tried to get done what we need to get done without using screens. It's been hard. And yes, let's say it, we've suffered. But our suffering is not even of a scale with that of Jochebed, Moses' mother, who we heard about in the story we read from Exodus. What Jochebed would have given to have March break and school plans for her child unravel. She could barely dare to make any plans for him at all. Because she was a Hebrew, her child wasn't supposed to be given even the chance to live, let alone the chance to have plans. The Pharaoh had decreed that every boy born to the Hebrews shall be thrown into the river Nile. The Hebrew people had been enslaved by Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, at the time when the Hebrew people were living there. They'd migrated to Egypt during a famine and had received special protection from Joseph, one of their own who, though he'd been kidnapped and brought to Egypt when he was young, had yet maneuvered his way up to being second in command of the entire kingdom. It was Joseph who kept Egypt's store of grain stockpiled and ready to weather any precarity. And because of this, when Joseph's people, the Hebrews, had arrived, they had received special care. But now a new king arose over Egypt, who did not know Joseph, it says earlier in the story. He noticed how numerous the Hebrew people were, and he worried about their power should they side with one of his enemies. So he had them enslaved and set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor. But the more they were oppressed, the story says, the more they multiplied and spread, so that the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites. This is the context in which Pharaoh made his evil decree. Every boy that is born to the Hebrews, you shall throw into the Nile. What parent wants to imagine what it was like for Jochebed, knowing when she conceived that there was a 50-50 chance her baby would not be allowed to live? Everyone she met tried to reassure her. "You're carrying high," they said. "It's going to be a girl." Jochebed vowed not to get attached, but when her son was placed on her chest the moment after he was born, when she looked at him into his eyes that were wide open and staring at her, well, how could she not fall in love? In those early months, as she spent hours and hours sitting and nursing, her mind began to formulate a plan. No way would Pharaoh take her son's life. When Pharaoh tried to unravel her plans for her child, Jochebed got to work and dreamed up a new plan. That's how I imagine the story went. The gossip was that Pharaoh's daughter had a soft spot for the Hebrew people. In my imagination, Jochebed knew exactly what she was doing when she put her baby into the Nile in that watertight container. I think she'd spent weeks observing Pharaoh's daughter. I think she knew exactly when and where Pharaoh's daughter went down to the river to bathe each day. I think Jochebed rehearsed with her daughter, Miriam, practicing exactly what she should say. Pharaoh wanted to unravel Jochebed's plans for her child, but Jochebed had made a new plan. Sure enough, the Pharaoh's daughter came down to the river as if on cue. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maid to bring it to her. When she opened it and saw the child crying, she took pity on him. "This must be one of the Hebrew children," she said. Big Sister Miriam was right there and piped up exactly as her mother had coached her. "Shall I go and get you a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" she said. And that's how Jochebed contrived to thwart the Pharaoh's plans and wound up getting paid to nurse her own baby. When your plans for your children unravel, you get up and get going and make new plans. It's an inspiring story. Jochebed is really inspiring. So bold, and her daughter is so courageous, and the Pharaoh's daughter is a real ally. But it needs to be said that Jochebed never should have had to come up with this plan for her son in the first place. The Hebrew people should not have been oppressed. Their children had the human right to life and to life abundant. How is it that there is no mention of any protest in this story? How is it that no one called out the Pharaoh? How is it that no one said to him, "You can't treat a human being in this way"? Why was it up to Jochebed alone to concoct a plan to thwart the Pharaoh on her own? There must have been other Egyptians around at that time who considered themselves to be good people, loving people, caring people, busy parents, sure, used to schlepping their kids to hockey and swimming and early morning band practice, working parents overwhelmed with fitting it all in and then fitting in the cooking and the cleaning and the errands. Good parents, ready to do anything for their children. Where were they looking? Where were they looking when Jochebed put her baby into a basket into the Nile? How come they couldn't see what was going on? When our plans for our children unravel, isn't the problem with the word "our"? It keeps our eyes focused in our own backyard, in our own neighborhood, in our own schools, focused on our own kids' issues, which is necessary. But what happens when we look over the fence, across the street, one district over? You see, it's still the case that certain pharaohs threaten the very lives and well-being of children here in this city and around the world. And it's true that here in this city and around the world, there are courageous and creative Yoshebeds working to thwart these pharaohs' plans. But Yoshebed could have used some Egyptians to stand up to Pharaoh alongside her, to call out the evil in the system as a whole. Where are the parents concerned about other people's children? Where are the parents concerned about their own role in perpetuating a system that oppresses some of its citizens? Where are the parents who will call out the Pharaoh of systemic racism to say, I know a power greater than you? Where are the parents who will call out the Pharaoh of subsistence wages and shift work, the Pharaoh of poverty, and say, you don't have the final say on a person's dignity and worth? I know an even greater power. Where are the parents who will call out the Pharaoh of iniquity and say, you've got it wrong? I have it on an even greater authority, that those whom you oppress are fearfully and wonderfully made. Where are the parents who will stand and proclaim their faith in this greater power? The God of love, the one who says, I have observed the misery of my people. I have heard their cry on account of their taskmasters. Indeed, I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them. Parents of the church, we are called to proclaim the presence and care of this great power, the eternal one, God, creator, redeemer, sustainer, source of life, living word, bond of love, the power whose spirit hovered over the earth when the earth was formless and void, the power who drew out light and living water and boundless sky and land and plant life and animals, the power who created us in God's image, who saw everything in creation and called it good. And so we're called to seek justice and resist evil, to actively work to thwart the pharaohs of our time. When our plans for our children unravel, we're looking over the fence now. Our hearts are bigger than our backyards. When plans for any child unravels, then all of us get to work, all of us, on making a new plan. Amen.